Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I have back my guest from yesterday, who ended up not quite completing the podcast interview due to technology issues. But welcome back to our tribe. Please introduce yourself, tell everybody where you are, your full name, and share your story with us today.
Hello, Gertrude. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak. I like to share my story with you and your listeners. So thank you for the opportunity. My name is Jane Houng, and I'm currently in Hong Kong. I am British. I consider myself a global citizen because I do a lot of traveling due to my charitable work. So my story is a tragic one because I lost a daughter to rape and strangulation in 2017. And that experience has changed my life forever. As a parent, anyone who's listening to this who is a parent, you probably would agree that it's sort of one's worst nightmare. Anyway, it happened to me and my family. And from the very beginning, I felt I wanted to do something to share my experience about suffering extreme grief, I suppose, and trying to do what I can as a bereaved mother to raise awareness about gender-based violence around the world. I used to write, and I hope to do more when I have a little bit more time. Before this happened, I would describe myself as a writer, as an educator, and a humanitarian. My daughter was a humanitarian. She was 30 years old, working at the British Embassy on projects for disadvantaged Lebanese and refugees, namely Palestinian and Syrian. She'd been there a while, was really enjoying the life. Her career was going very well. And one night she got a car back after a party with girlfriends, and she was raped and killed. So where did that leave me? It left me with a statistic, actually, that in 2017, which is when it happened, 83,000 people, women, somewhere in the world lost their lives due to femicide. It also opened up to me a whole new world of people who were doing what they could to serve others less fortunate than themselves, let's say. And I felt very strongly I wanted to do some good in this world, in this troubled world, with my experience. So very early on, I started charitable work. I actually established a charity in Greece first for refugees. The synergy was that my daughter always told me how much she enjoyed working with refugees. And at that time, I'm talking about 2018, there was a camp on the island of Lesbos where thousands of refugees were coming over from Turkey. It was the quickest route into EU. The camp was the worst in Europe. And Becky's bathhouse was a little place. We served about 80 to 100 women and children a day. We offered them hot showers, taking care of their children, and washing their clothes. That was very meaningful. And alas, there's still a crying out need for that kind of service. But COVID kind of snuffed it for practical reasons, apart from anything else. At the same time, I established a charity called Rebecca Dykes Writers in the States. Now, that was because as a writer, I learned my craft by doing an MFA, a Master of Fine Arts, actually in Vermont in the US. So I had many writerly friends who were Americans. And when they heard what had happened, they were outraged. And to cut a long story short, we host annual retreats at an organization called Highlights in Pennsylvania, where we are attracting writers who want to tell stories, very difficult stories about tragic circumstances to children. Now, that is quite a challenge because we don't want to traumatize children. And, even with adults, you don't want to traumatize adults either, because I firmly believe that trauma can traumatize, of course, but it also can transform. So once a year, a group of us gather. It's open to anybody who's interested. And the next retreat is this November. The main focus of my energy and determination, let's say, is about gender-based violence itself, though. It is a problem everywhere in the world, every country, at any class, any race, any religion. This problem is endemic. So Becky's button is a panic button, which is a wearable. You can put it on your body somewhere. It emits a very high decibel sound, and the wearer can press it and then run and ideally report. And the idea is that the attacker would be a little shocked and stunned. I can talk for the rest of this show about Becky's button, but for the sake of this introduction, I want to say that I believe this device would have saved my daughter's life. I know the circumstances, and there are many panic buttons on the market and safety devices. Becky's button is just one of them, but we've got her story. And you've got me as the bereaved mother saying, wake up, please take care of your personal safety, ladies.
Jane, I am so sorry to hear about what happened to your daughter. There are no words that can comfort a mother who's gone through this kind of pain. And I really thank you for the courage that you have to come online and share the story. You're raising an awareness to a lot of young women who aren't playing safe or being aware of their personal safety. But you're also doing something with your story that is helping others. And I hope in the work that you're focused on now, you find some kind of peace and resolution. Now, it's incredible when you listen to the statistics of just how many women die in circumstances like this. How do you find the strength to channel grief into activism?
I think grief is the price we pay for love, and I love my daughter very much indeed. I remain incensed by what's happened. I'm not naturally an angry person. I like to think I'm a very reasonable person. But what's the point of turning this into more tragedy? I believe my duty is to try to turn darkness into light. Mm-hmm. And for me, at a personal level, this has helped me more than anything. You know why? Because I'm meeting young people that they're someone else's daughter. I like to work with young people. I tell them the story. It wakes them up. I think, Becky, I don't want my daughter's life to be in vain, and it won't be as long as what I'm doing and this personal safety device does help some people in times of great need.
Wow. So why is it important to talk openly about sexual and gender-based violence? And was the perpetrator someone she knew? Was it someone familiar to her, or was it a stranger?
All right. It's important because it's everywhere. I mean, the issue of sexual and gender-based violence.
Yeah.
The perpetrator was found very quickly, and he's now serving a life sentence in a prison, a terrible prison, actually, and the conditions are appalling. So it happened in a taxi, and he was a stranger. This kind of murder is very unusual, actually, if you break down the statistics. And so, and now these days, not only have we got, femicide, murder, but we have assault, we have abuse, we have domestic violence. That's the largest, if you break down the percentage. And then we have the online sexual harassment that is going on most disturbingly, especially within the younger generations.
Yeah. It doesn't stop. So what challenges have you faced in building this global movement?
Challenges. Well, I suppose it's my strong desire to make this initiative scalable. Yeah. All right. I mean, it sounds very idealistic. We're a global initiative. We want to do lots of things in the world, but actually the details of making, for example, Becky's button, legal in countries is an issue. It is, what other challenges? Funnily enough, I feel, honestly, my experience, I've just had open doors a lot of the way. There's been a lot of serendipity. I don't know why, but we are now, within 4 years, I started this in 2021. We're operating in Lebanon, where it happened, Jordan, Pakistan, and in the UK. We registered the charity earlier this year in the UK, mainly to get funds, because, no money, no talk. So, and the other sort of, I guess it's unique advantage my charity has is that Becky was working for the British government. All right. And her story is particularly tragic. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't dressed immodestly. It wasn't that late. You can't point fingers at anything she did. She got a taxi for her own safety. She could have walked. It was a 15-minute walk. She chose to get a taxi. So about challenges, I don't find so much. It's just if people hear the story, they want to do something.
Yeah, that's good. Now, how can communities support survivors of gender-based violence more effectively?
Oh, that's a big one. We work with younger generations. This is a personal, it's a choice after 4 years of experience. Why? Because a lot of them are in closed communities,
Right.
either at secondary school or at universities. Also, we can talk to young men as well as women, not accusing them, just saying, look, guys, this is what happens, and you're male, what are we going to do about it in your generation? So getting a cultural shift at a community level, I'm sure from the work you do, it would be miraculous. So we've started with closed communities and young people where there are shifts going on. And, let's face it, some of those young men will go on to commit gender-based violence. So at a community level, or it's much in the outside world, it's much more challenging because, of course, the reality is we need policing, we need the law, we need enforcement of the law, we need NGOs that are actually supporting victims of violence. We need to encourage victims to speak out, right? In a lot of countries, there's a hesitation about that. It's a huge issue, but I want Becky's Button and my charity to be the charity that says, look, we know it's difficult to make a difference, but we want to take preventative action right now with this very simple device. And we want to talk to young people and encourage them to talk to each other, basically, and have better relationships when they grow up.
Yeah, that's absolutely necessary. So what role does education play in prevention?
We consider this a vital role. And so actually our strategy for now that we're registered is threefold, actually. Yeah,
right.
We've got the button, and we're going to improve the button. We're working on a model that will be better. Education is encouraging young people, especially, right? They're still in the educational establishments, to actually debate about the idea, get the facts, debate, think, change. So without education, the challenge is much greater. Let's say with this big picture of gradual cultural shifts.
Yeah.
So we feel this so strongly that all the projects we're doing this year, we are co-creating with students. We ask them to brainstorm about, what could be done in their university to make unsafe places safer. All right. Or what needs do they need if they are attacked? Young girls, why don't you go and report? Why? Yeah. So let the young people tell us what they need. So that's why we co-create as much as we can.
I think that's the only way to do it, because then they have buy-in right from the beginning. They're a part of creating this movement, this wave. So how can technology be used ethically to support vulnerable people? And why are you having a problem with getting this device legal? I don't understand that.
All right. One way that we've got round potentially legal issues is that at present, Becky's Button. Oh, I haven't even showed it to you. Becky's button doesn't have GPS. It has very limited functionality. It just has a high decibel sound, and that was within legal limits. That's actually the only legal limitation. But of course, with all the changes in the world at the moment, in the technological world, and now AI as well, there's always this issue. Oh, should we develop this from a low tech to a high tech? Now that's when you hit more legal issues, and that's very dependent on the country, right? I'm sure many countries GPS isn't open, because there are many areas. And one thing I do have in my mind is that domestic violence, given that is the biggest chunk, let's say, of gender-based violence. My dream is to create a Becky's button more for domestic violence, and that almost certainly would benefit from some kind of tech function, let's say. That's all I want to say at this stage. And there are opportunities, and if the funds come in, because that's the other issue, right? This may be, we can produce at about $2 a piece, and we say we give. That's part of our charity. We give to those most vulnerable. We don't want to get involved in selling or to date, this is what we've said. But going forward, if we really want people to buy into this, that, this is Becky's, and Becky is very sad what happened to Becky, and, we support Becky, then maybe people will buy it. And if we have got a button that could do more for victims of domestic violence, then I'm very interested to talk.
Okay. So what advice would you give to other parents who are facing this unimaginable loss?
Well, everybody gets through in different ways. We all get through our grief in different ways. And I speak with sort of suffering in my heart saying that. The fallout within a family it is huge. We all get through grief in different ways. But all I can say for myself is I could see a slippery slope, right? I could go that way. And actually, I met someone at my daughter's funeral, and she was a young person, and she was so she's young. They were all late 20s and things, and she sort of said, "Oh, it's funny that I live in a block of flats, and there's a woman that lost her son, and since the day he died, she wears black, and now she just stays in her flat." And I thought, oh dear, so there was a slippery slope. I could have gone down that, but what use am I to anyone? I made a very deliberate choice to cleanse my life, if you like. You could say it's been as much a spiritual quest as anything else, but I avoided drugs. I avoided, alcohol, all the things that, many people would naturally go to. And I'm not saying, I was very aware that would lead to somewhere I didn't want to go. And I exercised. I did I've kept myself fit because I firmly believe that a healthy body is a healthy mind. It's all interrelated. And if I exercised, I could sleep. I mean, not all the time, but you get the idea. I mean, that was my route to getting through this. And of course I have bad, sad days, especially anniversaries. But overall, I would say to someone and that's another thing I found, Gertrude. I mean, it was never not why me, it's why not me, right? Tens of thousands of parents lose their children, not just to murder, but, accidents, illness, so many things. So I wanted to keep strong for my remaining daughter. Thank God I have another daughter, and now I have 2 grandsons. I wanted to keep strong for Becky's friends. They were devastated. Some of them have never gone back to work. You know, they were mentally disturbed. They just couldn't believe it. I want to keep strong for my family and my loved ones.
That's your compass. That's what keeps you focused. It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, how do you balance personal healing with public advocacy? You're juggling quite a few balls here.
I believe it's a bit paradoxical, but by public advocacy, that is my healing. It's very hard to make me feel joyful. And I can say that the moments of joy are when I see that through the industry of my team and my charity, that I've changed people's lives for the better. That's my healing.
Yeah. That's what keeps you going. And the beauty is that you're seeing the results of your work now. It's not just a concept.
It's been I mean, it's transformed my life. It's taken me on a totally different trajectory. And this is just a personal sort of choices. But, you know, do I want to spend the rest of my life sort of going cruising or, you know, holidays? I can't do that. I feel like I, for the sake of my daughter, I will continue to speak out as long as I can. And I firmly believe that for evil to triumph, good people must do nothing. Right? I want to do something. I'm not saying, oh, I'm a great person, but that's a lot where my motivation comes from.
It's just amazing. I have a good friend of mine who's chiming in from the UK, Nyasha Gwatizo. Thank you for your comments there on LinkedIn. She said gender violence is so cruel. And thank you for bringing these topics alive.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Wow. Now, how can people support? How can people help your cause? What do we need to do to help you get this in every single country and get more eyes and awareness?
Our ask is very small at the moment. We're not geared up to donations yet, but we will be once we get a bank account. I think what I'd like to say is anyone who's listening to this, please, could you follow us on Becky's Button, Instagram, or follow me on LinkedIn? Just see what's going on and tell your friends. Tell your friends about Becky's Button and tell vulnerable women that it's really worthwhile taking care of their personal health. And as a young man, personal safety. And as a man, please take care of the women that you care about, because Becky could have been your girlfriend. She could have been your sister. She could have been your mother. So how would you feel about that? So take a responsibility. We want men to man up. We want men to not be bystanders, you know, to actually do more. That will be a great comfort to me.
That's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it is time for our men folk to take a stand against these issues as well. And I like what you said about the younger generation, because a lot of this has happened in our generation on our watch. Now we want to be able to groom young men who also say, no, this isn't right.
And there are the majority of those kind of people. That's where I'm at. I mean, yeah.
That is just wonderful. My last 2 questions are a bit of a thought experiment. In the first one, I'm going to teleport you back to the younger you. that mom who received this news on that day, just in case there is a woman who is listening to you right now, who is in the middle of the storm, just trying to figure out how she gets out of bed every day, how she continues with her life and brings some kind of meaning and purpose to what's happened. If
This
you
is
could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom.
This is what worked for me, all right? And everybody copes with grief a different way. At one stage, when I was writing a book about my daughter, everything I could remember about my daughter, that was the time that if anything, I broke down. I was so sad. I went to visit a doctor who said, "Oh, you've got PTSD. You know, you're in a bad way. Here's some medication." But I also visited a doctor from the East. So this is more from the Eastern tradition of how to get through significant loss, great shock. And she said, "Well, of course you're crying a lot. Of course, be kind to yourself. Get out of bed, force yourself out of bed and go for a walk. Go into nature. Look at the trees, look at the flowers." It's a bit woo-woo, but for me, it worked. As well as exercising. For me, it really, really got me through the dark days, keeping my body healthy in order that my mind is peaceful or relatively peaceful.
Yeah, there is something about physical movement that unlodges the emotion that's trapped in your body at a time like this, right? It shifts the energy.
Well, yes, I've have studied a lot about this, and I do. Again, it's a personal response, but I believe that we lock in trauma, whatever you want to call it, in our bodies somewhere. So these more Eastern remedies of yoga, stretching, movement, breathing, just breathing, because for me, and I really say this with some caution, and because it is just it has been my personal way through. I've avoided, well, I haven't taken medication because to blunt the emotion I feel I need to feel that emotion to get through it rather than just suppress it and subdue it. That was my personal choice.
I remember reading a book when my father died of a sudden heart attack that said something like, our emotions are like our children. And when they come, you have to sit with it for a while. The more you resist and push against it, the more it wants your attention and it passes through you. So just sitting with it sometimes is the medicine, is the remedy.
I love that. Sit with it. Yes, cry, do whatever, but sit.
Yeah.
And it will go, because emotions,
They come and go.
they come and go. Are we really our emotions? Well, now we're getting into sort of spiritual territory, but in a nutshell, a lot of the Zen Buddhist philosophy has helped me through this.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. The last question is a bit futuristic. This time I'm going to teleport you into the future to go and meet the 90-year-old you.
Oh.
Wise woman who has led you up until this point. Based on your work, this global movement you've started, if you could teleport into the future and go and have a conversation with her, what will you say to her when you finally meet her? And I'll tell you why I love asking women this question. There is something that is guiding you, something very deep and very wise, and you are very connected to the energy of who you are becoming. But a lot of women look outside of themselves for solutions. We are grabbing for this and that. And yet when you can find it inside, that's where all the answers lie.
Oh, well, there you are. That's in
Save
Buddhism.
your
Come
life
to
for
my ears.
being
Yeah. The way out is in. Right. You know, I saw my daughter dead. She looked like an angel. I've seen death. Funerals, memorials. And when you experience death firsthand, death is a great teacher. And I'm very focused on the idea of how I'll feel when I'm 90. There's some belief that the people that you've lost, the loved ones that you lost, come in because there's a realm just not too far away from the veil. I don't know. But going back to the way out is in, I will feel peaceful. I'm not afraid of death. I feel that I am indeed linked to something bigger than myself. My life is very meaningful. I work very hard for a cause. So I will say, okay, I'm 60 and yeah, okay, and 90. I will say, well done. You did your best.
Yeah, and that Becky's button will be in every hand of every vulnerable woman on the planet by then, for sure.
That's my dream.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Jane, thank you so much. I know it's not easy to put yourself out there the way that you do, but I think there's going to be a lot of healing that comes to a lot of mothers, sisters, husbands, wives, families who've experienced this kind of loss. There's nothing like losing your child. But I think if you stay focused the way you are on this work, you're going to do some amazing things. You're already doing some amazing things that are changing lives. So thank you for your work.
Thank you for your work, Gertrude. I'm honored to be on your podcast. I wish I could come to some of your events. I've looked you up. You know, you've got a variety of things going on, but I've got a really busy schedule this year. And it's all
meet
about
a person sooner than you think. I'm pretty sure of that.
So maybe one day, but at the moment, any travel that I do is related to my charity, Becky's Button, and yep. There's lots happening this year. So thank you very much indeed for listening and giving me this opportunity.
It's an absolute pleasure. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of people from all over the world. We share these stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are right now to where you want to go. So if you are a mother, a sister, a brother, a father, somebody who has experienced great loss, I think this is a story of inspiration. There's a few tips on how you can get through this phase. Don't try and do it alone. Create a community around you of people who understand what you're going through. Don't do it alone. There are people out there that can support you. And if you know someone who is struggling, that mom who is dressed in black, who's not leaving her apartment, who can't see the wood from the trees anymore, reach out to those people. That is a cry for help. Reach out in whatever small way you can. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. Just check in on them every day. I just popped in to see how you're doing. You don't have to ask them anything. Just your presence is what makes a difference. Because I think a lot of people don't know what to do, Jane. They don't know how to comfort you. They don't know, they don't have the words.
Quick comment, yes. And for people who avoid me, it's a little bit painful. Exactly what you said, Gertrude. Just a present, no need to ask, notice that you know, and you acknowledge that you know, and that's it. That's all you need.
Just sit and have a cup of tea with that person. No questions asked, even if you have to sit in silence, that is a lot for the person who's grieving. Thank you, Jane. I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Thanks again, Jane.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates, and join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.